But a learning interference is a real thing. It interferes with what you're capable of doing. So, as I said, terms change all the time. When I first went to school at Boston University, I had all clinical psychologists practically for my teachers. Everybody was diagnosed, I'm not kidding you, 90% of the people were called borderline. Now do you hear about borderline anymore? All of a sudden we had a term which became my least favorite term. It's becoming better now because it's calmed down, called attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity. Now I've been swimming upstream with a lot of things, and I certainly swam upstream with that. But there are people who have trouble focusing, but we don't even call children lazy anymore. They're all attention deficit disorder, or at least they were, until, as I said, the last couple of years, this has calmed down. There wasn't a child who came into my office who the teacher, a parent, the principal, someone had said, they have attention deficit disorder. My issue with that is, A, no one asks why. I would rather balance my checkbook, and boy, can I focus on that, than learn Spanish verbs, because I don't hear those sounds. It is hard for me. Do I focus on this? Yes. Do I not focus on that? No, I don't focus. We all have different things that we focus on. And if a parent comes in and says, he sits and reads for an hour and a half, but he's fooling around in math class, so he has attention deficit disorder, I'm thinking, I don't think so. There are no tests that they have developed that really test for attention deficit disorder. There is someone here in town who uses some computers. I have a few question marks about those tests, but that's my own personal opinion. There is a little test that my daughter, who does what I do in New Hampshire, she keeps me up to date, I feel like. She sends me things and says, you need to know about this, Mother. So I listen carefully. This is a little test called the Stroop. And if I do get someone who they're calling attention deficit disorder, I have administered this and the older version because it oftentimes will back up that it is a true problem in focusing. The Stroop is simple, simple, simple. First of all, it has names of colors in black ink. Then it has crosses in different colors. You have to read the colors in black ink to me in 45 seconds. You have to read the colors of the X's in 45 seconds. Then on the back are the names of colors, but they're written in the wrong ink. So red is written in blue, and you have to tell me what color ink it is. It is amazing. And the theory behind this is, can you block out interfering things? And it's not a bad little test, so I do use that constantly. As I said, so ADD became very popular. It is now sort of fading out. Then all of a sudden they want all children to be bipolar. That was in front of Time magazine. I stopped my subscription to Time magazine on that very issue. They wanted them to be bipolar. Now what I don't like about that is, A, it used to have a better name. It used to be manic depressive. Now that makes some sense to me. If manic depressive, that says something. Now it's called bipolar. I think of Antarctica. But these are the things that happen. Then I want to go on, and I end on a slightly negative note, but it ties in with what you people are a lot about and avoiding people getting into medication. If people are given medication at young ages, it becomes a way of life. I have 10-year-olds, this is one of my objections to ADD, who would walk into my room and say, I'm taking Ritalin, I have ADD, I can't do this, this, and this, and this. They have already planned themselves. It's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what they're going to be like. So I'm against labeling if at all possible, A. I try not to do it. You have to do it for insurance companies. Insurance companies will call me and say, we can't give them the okay to go ahead unless you'll diagnose them. I said, I haven't seen the child. How am I supposed to diagnose them? But that's what insurance companies do. They're not my favorite people either. Anyway, but if a child gets on Ritalin or all these other medications, it becomes a way of life. It solves our problems, and so that they get used to taking them. And there was an article in just the other day's paper of a psychiatrist who is not long going to be able to administer drugs anymore. I personally, in my, not a huge practice, but my reasonable practice, have had 3 examples I had a 3-year-old brought to my office who was on 3 medications. I think this psychiatrist, I hope, has retired. He was referred to in some circles as the chemist. Then I had another boy who was 9, came to me. Luckily, my secretary worked for doctors, and so I can't keep up with all the new medications. I try my best to keep track of schools and medications, all these things. It's impossible. So I have this wonderful secretary, and so she would go, and she looked up this medication. It had been tested on the elderly, period. And this was being given to a 9-year-old boy, same psychiatrist. Then I had a wonderful Cuban family who came to me. They moved back to New Jersey. It was too bad. They were lovely people. And he said, this man said, my son was prescribed this. I took it over the weekend. I was crazed. Do you think I'm going to give it to him? No. Good for you. So that's, I think, my story. I think I've covered it in leaps and bounds. Probably not as organized as I hoped I'd be, but threw some papers around, etc. But that's my story, and I am basically against medication. There are environmental ways of helping people who can't focus, even at home, at night. There are some children, don't get me wrong, who need medication. There is no doubt about it, some. But the ones who were put on for ADD, it was amazing, the number of kids who were put on in a classroom. Oh, I have one other thing I was going to talk about. How much time do I have?
I think it's about over.
Oh.
But tell us
This is the other story. This is about the tests you have to take, the SATs, to get into college. The pressure to get in now is horrendous. And I've done a lot of testing in the past. I have a woman who has taught at Gulliver Prep for years and years and years. She said, 15 years ago there might be 2 children who got accommodations. Now, 2/3 of the class want accommodations because parents are so excited and children are so worried, that excited is a poor use of the word, about getting into college that they want them to score on this test. So they get them tested and then try and get them accommodations. There are some children who really need the accommodations. But the SAT, it seems to me, because they're so frustrated, they're getting so many people sent to them, have tightened up their criteria for getting accommodations. And one child I know was turned down because how could he have 120 IQ and get accommodations? But this is one of these slow processors. There are people who really do process more slowly, and they need to have more time to tell what they know. I tested a young man for the MedCaps a long time ago. He was a junior at FIU, and he could not do things quickly at all. We did some testing for him. He had flunked the MedCaps, and the MedCaps is the test for doctors, and he had flunked the MedCaps for cold, and he wanted to be a doctor. So I tested him, said you need to have more English. He went to Iowa for some reason. I will never understand that, to get more English, but he did. Came back, we did some more testing. He got to take the MedCaps with accommodations, more time. Flew through them, went to Johns Hopkins, got through law doctor school. He would make a terrific doctor if he thinks slowly and fit. That's why you keep doing this. I think I've covered everything I wanted to say. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.